Welcome back to another episode of the Be the CEO of Your Life and Business podcast. This week, Amy and I are talking about, our topics are always relevant to something that's happening in the present moment.
Yep.
But this week, it's incredibly relevant as I have had to really evaluate whether or not I need to cut some things out of my life. And when I say cut things out, I mean like boards that I'm sitting on, activities that I have to do, things like that, because I'm recognizing that there are two buckets, so to speak, that I need to focus on right now. And that is on one side, I have my kids and my family, and the other side is the office. And anything outside of that, I have to really take a look at and say, is this an absolute necessity? If not, I'm out. Because it's just, this week has been so overwhelming. Even just the thought of all of the meetings that I've had and stuff like that, just the thought of it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I really had to sit down and say to myself, okay, what things are you doing that are enjoyable and, could be helpful for work or whatever, but are not an absolute necessity right now. And I ended up stepping off of one of the boards that I've been on because I just can't even envision myself having to go to another meeting.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time. I have to focus on the kids and the firm. And that's it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think this bigger conversation is like, also, how do we learn to say no to some things, and how that comes down to be? I mean, for you, and I know because Laura and I talk through these issues with each other. We probably bounce these things off of each other more than we would even our own husbands, because we get it, because we're both uniquely in the same position where we're both moms that really do want to build this business as best as we possibly can and dedicate a lot of time and energy to it. But at the same time, too, we want to give back to our communities. We want to be involved. That fosters, a community that we love to be a part of. And in seasons like this, where we're so overwhelmed with business and with our kids and everything, it is great to have that outlet. And while it can feel like it is super overwhelming to have another thing like that, there are benefits. And that's what I like. And I definitely want to talk about that more, because I think when you were going through and kind of rationalizing what you needed to fall off from, right? Like what needed to fall away and just give you a little more peace, it came down to a board that you would still have those relationships with the people that are in that community, notwithstanding your involvement in the board.
Yes.
Right.
And we'll still go to their events. It's an organization that we love, and we love the women there. So we'll still be involved, but not as a requirement.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
agreed.
If I'm on the board, I have to be at the meetings. I have to do certain things. And so I have requirements that I have to meet. And I don't like doing something when I feel like I can't contribute the way I'm supposed to be contributing. Right. And that's what I said when I told them that I have to step down, because I cannot be the board member that I would like myself to be right now, because I have too many other things pulling at me. And if I can't do it 100%, I don't want to do it at all.
Yeah.
Because I would rather just go to the events, see everybody. Like Amy said, we still have relationships with the women there. And it's got to be limited to that right now.
And I think it starts with a question of, right, with every examination that we talk about, like, what are you doing? What is on your plate right now? Right. And we know that family is non-negotiable. Our business is non-negotiable, but then we each are involved with a lot, and all of it vies for our time. So it really comes down to a question of what is going to be the most important, what's going to take the most priority. So for Laura, when we were talking about this week, she said it so bluntly. It was like, if it doesn't involve the kids or this office, I'm at, like, I can't do it. I really can't do it. And, then we start saying, okay, let's evaluate. Like, what does that look like? Like, what are the areas that you could step away from, but it's not going to affect you in other areas, right? Of like that community, of that collaboration, building relationships, et cetera. Like, there's got to be a little bit more that we look into in this. And then that's where you came down to your determination and said, I have to start saying no to some things, even though it's going to disappoint other people. Of course it is. You can't control that.
Me.
And disappoint yourself.
Yeah. Things that I enjoy.
Right.
But I have to, and I'm going to tell the minivan story. My mom,
Oh,
the
yeah.
season you're in, just
Mhm.
because that's how I came to this conclusion.
Yeah,
I always get all this wisdom from my mother.
of course.
Because she just has she said the right things always. And so when my kids were little, we had 3 kids each in a car seat. And we were trying to figure out, which car would actually work for us because it was just a nightmare with the 3 car seats. And my whole life, nobody knows this better than my mom, is that I hate minivans with a passion. I was like, I will never in my life have one. They're horrible. Never, never, never. And my mom and I said to her, I was like, Ma, I think I have to get a minivan. This is my worst nightmare. And this sounds so stupid, but this is really what happened. And she was like, listen, this is just the season you're in.
Yeah.
This is not permanent. You have 3 little babies that are all in car seats, and this minivan is going to serve a purpose for the time being. It's just the season that you're in. And I kept going back to that line this week. This is the season I'm in. My kids, it's just a different season. My kids are older, but with that comes all of their activities. Driving, the 3 of them, they all play sports. There's only 2 of us, Mike and I, and 3 of them, and all of their activities. And so, they also have a lot going on in school. Like Matthew's in 8th grade. We have a lot of things going on with his classes, his work, a lot of things with him that we have to manage and handle at home that takes a lot of my energy. So it's like, okay, this is now the season I'm in. What do I need to do to make this work so that I can function?
Right.
Just for this period of time. It doesn't mean I can never go back to that board. It doesn't mean I can never do other things again. But during this time period, I really have to focus either on the kids or obviously this firm that we're building.
Yeah. And something else that Laura said to me this week. So she passes all of the wisdom that she gets from her mom, and it passes right along to me because we are in like a 10-year or 8-year difference between how old our oldest are.
Yeah.
So she's been through the phase that I'm in already. And she's like, that's behind me. Right. Like I can't leave my kids at home. She probably could.
Yes, I do.
So this week, my husband's traveling, and just the thought of it put me in a fetal position. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this, because not only is it, the stress of me just trying to maximize how much work I want to put in and how much I need to be in the office and getting my work done, but it's then considering drop-offs and pickups and what are the activities at night and how am I going to occupy Joseph when Olivia is playing on the soccer field, and where am I going to bring the kids?
So hard
when there's back to school night. What am I going to do? I have to do it all. And so I made a decision because Laura said, look, it's just day by day at this point. You take it one day at a time. And every day now I've woken up and I've said, okay, I'm making the decision that I'm going to run the day. I am not going to let the day run me. I'm not going to let my calendar run me. I'm in control of this. I can make the decision that it's going to be a good day. It's going to be organized. And that's how I operated. And you know me, once I get going, I could just go.
Yeah.
I'm racing around the house. I'm like, kids, let's go, get yourselves together.
Tasmanian devil.
I'm setting things up for tonight.
Yeah.
I'm setting things up for later. I'm doing all the things that I possibly can. And it just sets me up for success. And I knew I had meetings today that was going to take me away from work. I have phone calls I have to make that are not necessarily work related, not billable related. So I know I had to fit a lot into the day today. But I decided I had to say, okay, if I know what this day is going to bring, if I know what this week is going to look like, then everything else has got to fall on the wayside. I have had text messages sitting in my inbox, in my text message app, waiting for me to respond to, but I refuse to look at them because I just don't have the brain wavelengths to really absorb and process and deal with them. It's not that I'm never going to get to them. It's not urgent stuff, but it's something that I just don't need to spend the energy answering. And for someone where I like a cleaned out inbox, I don't like having emails lingering. I like to have everything just, a squared away foundation. It is so hard to then have to say, oh, this has to wait, so I have to keep this open, or this email can't be marked unread, or that laundry basket's going to have to sit there for 4 days. It is so tough to say no to those things because you feel like you can do it all, but we can't. We just physically can't do it all.
And for anybody out there that is just like a doer, like we are, like go, you just want to get things done. I love having a list. We love working off of a list. We love getting things done. And we're just high energy, right? Like we're always moving. And that's the way I am. And that's the way Amy is too. It is very hard to have to prioritize things and make the tough decision to cut certain things out because you want to do everything. You want to please everybody. You want to serve on every board you want to serve on. You don't want to have to say no to anything. But at some point you have to realize, like I had to realize, okay, I can only do so many things. Like I can't remember if I talked about it last week on the podcast, but that line that I heard, I don't even remember where I heard it. Maybe it was one of my breathing exercises. Okay, I can't solve any more problems today.
Yes.
When I go to bed at night. Did I talk about that last week? I think
just briefly. Yeah.
Right. So, I can't do anything else. Like I can't solve any more problems today. So I have to really look at where do I need to focus? What am I doing right now that falls into those two buckets? And what is outside of that?
Yeah.
Because whatever is outside of that has to go.
And this period of time too, I think that the problem is that people think that if you drop off from it, you're never going to be able to get back into it, or you're never going to be able to have that opportunity again. And you know what? That might be right. That really might be right. But are you going to continue then to suffer through a really difficult season just for the sake of not being a part of something or serving in some way or, chasing some specific goal or whatever it is? Are you going to allow yourself to suffer through for the sake of you don't know if the opportunity is going to knock again? Then on the flip side of that coin, I think this is what you and I have had to learn over the years is there could be a better opportunity that's better suited for you around the corner. And you are hanging on to the energy and the drain. And it's like the universe is saying to you, or whoever's upstairs that you believe in is pulling all the strings. They're like, you're not ready for the next thing that I want to give to you. You're not ready for it because you're still so constrained by all of the things that you keep hanging on to. Like sometimes you just have to let go in order to have better opportunities and new opportunities that are right for you come in.
And it's also important that you listen to your instincts.
Yeah.
Because I probably for the last 2 weeks have been getting this feeling like you need to let go. There's certain things you need to let go of for now. And finally, my intuition for whatever reason is usually spot on.
Yeah.
So when I have something that keeps reoccurring in my head and keeps coming up, I've learned that I should follow it because it's usually right.
Yeah.
So, after having that thought repeatedly, I had to say to myself, okay, obviously something is going on. Somebody's trying to tell me something. So let me sit down and really evaluate, what I'm doing. And there are other things that I not would like to cut out, but wish that I could cut out because it would make things even easier for me. But like this other board that we're on, I'm an executive officer. So I'm not just going to step back.
Yeah.
You got to really look at what the obligation is. I can't just say, okay, that doesn't have to do with home or work. So I'm out. Like if you really have an obligation to something, you just need to find a way to work around it. Like for this board that we're on Tuesday, we had our monthly meeting. And Mike is gone during the week in the evenings. He's coaching Chris's football team. So he is gone basically with Chris from 5:15 until about 8:30, 8:45. So it's me, myself, and I, and Matthew and Kaylee, and all of the things that I need to do with them.
Yeah.
So I had to pick Matthew up from football. I had to figure out a way for Kaylee to get to soccer, figure out somebody to pick her up, and meet the teacher for her school at 7:30. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to skip the meeting, but I emailed them and I said, I'm going to be a half hour late to the meeting. And I had to leave a little bit early to get to meet the teacher. And I had my mom pick up Kaylee, take her to practice, get her and take her home. And I was able to pick Matthew up. That's why I was late to the meeting. But it's like, I had that obligation, but I could not be there the whole, there's only
Right.
so many things I can do and only so many people I can pull in to help me.
Mhm.
So I had to work around it.
Yeah.
So if you have obligations that you just simply can't cut everything out of your life, right?
No.
There are certain things that you still need to do. So I figured out a way to work around it for that night. I'm sure next month will be something different,
Yeah.
but we're not saying that you pick your priorities and cut everything else out of your life, right? That's not
No.
the lesson here.
No, it can't be, because that's just not realistic
Right.
either. Life is going to throw you a curveball no matter what. If you have one thing to do, or if you have 25 things to do, you are going to get a curveball thrown at you.
Yeah.
So you can't insulate yourself from those, but you can be more mindful of how and where you spend your time and where you direct your energy. And look, at the end of the day, the board that you stepped away from it's not going to crumble without you.
Right.
They're fantastic women that are going to continue to do an amazing job. And you can still be involved when you can.
Right.
But right now, it's just a no for now. And that's, I think, the biggest takeaway too, is it doesn't have to be something where you say like, this is forever, like, right off into the sunset and you're never going to be able to have this chance again. It's just this season of your life, you have to honor that there are other things that are going to take your, priorities and your time.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to be realistic as to what energy you can give, and not to your detriment.
Right. Right. And also after Meet the Teacher, a bunch of the moms were texting like, oh, let's go out for a drink. And I'm like, a drink? I'm sorry.
A drink of water before I go to bed? What?
But it's something like that. Like there was no way on this earth that I could go out for a drink that night. I had to get home. Matthew and Kaylee were killing each other at home. So I needed to get home to make sure they were not fighting with each other.
Right.
And so, I had to get home. That was not an option for me.
Yeah.
Would I love to hang out with them? Of course, but that's just not where I am right now. Yeah. So, when you get like invitations to something, or you just feel overwhelmed, really sit down and think about what your main priorities are for the moment.
Yeah.
Because, like my mom said, it's just, it's a season that you're in.
Yeah.
And it's not permanent. I got rid of my minivan a long time ago.
Yes.
Right?
But and now you can look back on it lovingly and say, wow, those were the days. Not like,
oh my God,
there's no chance that Laura Katina is rolling in with a minivan anytime soon. But I remember those days, and I remember you being like, this is a phase. Yeah. This is what I have to do. And that was it. It just,
and you know what
I love?
I love, so somebody that we continue to work with, that we used to work with, her kids are much older. And I remember when they were in high school, and she used to be like, I am basically a taxi service.
Right.
She would always say, she would come in and she'd be like, I could have driven to Virginia and back last night with the amount of hours that I spent in the car. That's like her line.
Yeah.
And now when I was talking to her this week, I was like, I'm there. I remember when you used to be like, I'm in the car all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how like I'm following where she was. And I remember like the things that she did to get through those times and the things that she used to say about it.
Yeah.
And that's helping me now. And it's like, you're behind me, right?
Yep.
So you're watching all this. And then when you get here, you'll have things to help you.
I'm so thankful. I've got a 10-year ahead of me version of what my life's going to look like. I'm like, oh, okay.
But it helps to have watched somebody go through that, because each phase is so different with kids.
Oh my gosh.
And, to just watch somebody who's been through it, remember when they went through it and the things they used to say and the things they used to do to kind of make it easier for themselves.
Yeah.
And just try to incorporate those things to the extent that you can to get through this phase, because that's really what it is. It's not permanent. So whatever your phase you're in right now, if you feel incredibly overwhelmed like I did this week, and don't beat yourself up about it, give yourself grace and just allow yourself a little time to sit down and think about what your priorities are, what you need to cut out of your life, right? Just for now, not forever. And what can you do to help yourself, conserve some energy and make this season a little bit easier for yourself. So we thank you for spending time with us, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.